Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to After Church Tea Time, where we're going to discuss Gabe's sermon on Your Feelings Are the Pathway to Yourself. And I really enjoyed this sermon because it kind of brings you back to the basics of your ascension journey, and that is to feel your feelings in order to move through the blocks and the upsets that you were moving through your journey. And so I really loved that he touched on one of the most important things that I find people get very triggered by is actually feeling the feeling and believing that they are their feelings or identifying with their feelings and having a hard time really allowing them to be moved through and just acknowledge them. And by doing that, there's like this fear that if I acknowledge my feelings, I'm going to accept it and then I'm going to manifest it into my reality. So I love that he touched on that, even as a seasoned student and really moving through this work. There are moments where I still have blocks myself where I'm like, oh, I don't want to look at this or I don't want to feel into it. But once I do, it really does bring a lot of clarity and it brings the truth to the surface. How'd you guys feel about the sermon?
Yeah, I feel there is a massive block in just understanding that, feelings are real or, they are something to be move through. There is so much of, conditioning that we go through where we want to not look within and directly respond to what is happening on the outside. And that really delays the journey for us. The time that we take to respond and then, get caught up in the reaction. If we take that time to really go within and, feel our feelings and then from that place invite love there, invite God there, and then ensure that, yes, we are acting from a place of peace. That is like the core, a sense of ascension, and that really allows the reality to shift. But yes, as we are starting on the ascension journey, this is a big learning for us. Huh.
Yes, I agree on that, and I also wanted to share something that touched me a lot in in this sermon. It's about the fact that feeling your feelings can be scary, and Gabrielle, and as the teaching says, it's safe to do it. And as I learned it for myself, I learned that it's prior to feeling your feelings, it's important to feel safe, to feel them. So it's something that I learned, thanks to the teachings of union, that prior to that I need to work on cultivate safety within myself in
Mm.
order to be able to feel my feelings. And sure, that's important, not to that the feelings, and Gabrielle says it in the sermon, that the feelings are an experience, they are not you, you are not your feelings. And that it's important to accept them as they are, which mean just an experience that can pass. And sometimes when we feel something very strong, when we have those big feelings, we can tend to think that we might be stuck in them, and that's it would be difficult to go through. And that's the point, I think, where we tend to identify to the feeling, when we feel disempowered and not able to go through them. So he uses the metaphor of the ghost, for example, and it's something that prior to the teachings of union I heard from therapists. But the difference with the teachings, it's with the mirror exercise you have the tools to, with the teachings, and especially with the mirror exercise, you have the tool to face your feelings and to dissolve them. And it's very empowering to follow the teachings of union, because on an intellectual level you can understand that you're not your feelings, that it's safe to say to feel them, to go through them. But how you do so, And we have the mirror exercise to go through that and to transform and to transcend that experience, which is not just an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. He talks about not giving power to the upset. And that's a really big one is when you realize how powerful you are and how divine you are. He mentioned that you just allow yourself to like give the feelings over to God and give the situation over to God and then watch God move through the upset for you. And we talk about this in Twin Flame Ascension School where you are in the cave of fear, but also in the cave of fear is God. And so you're never walking through the cave of fear by yourself or alone. He's right there with you. And there's been many times where it feels like a upset or a block is so overwhelming, but as soon as you recognize your power and you just surrender the block and the upset over to God, it really does dissipate in ways that like you couldn't have done it yourself. And I find that to be really relieving, especially in union with your twin flame. There's many times where I'm having an upset with my twin flame, and Gabe touched on how the upset isn't with the person; it's actually within yourself and with God. And so when I find myself having an upset with my twin flame and then not wanting to just fight about it, sometimes like a fight is healthy, I guess. Conflict is healthy, but there's moments where I'm like, I really don't have the energy to do this. And I would rather put my energy into loving myself. And so I just surrender it to God. And it just naturally dissipates, and we ultimately come to the truth and to peace at the center of it. And so having that awareness of how powerful you are and that you're divine and that you're meant to feel good and you're meant to feel love in those spaces really does allow you to move through your ascension journey with grace and not feeling like you're on the struggle bus a lot. Shaleia says this in a Twin Flame Ascension School class too, like get off the struggle bus, just feel your feelings and you'll be just fine. But it's when you're not feeling your feelings and you're not honoring that that's the experience you're moving through and just respecting that that is the next block and upset that's coming up, you will feel like you're struggling through the process.
I think as we feel our feelings, the ease of feeling them also, the ease of being with God, that also sort of improves over time because initially it's so difficult to really find that connect with God. Like when we say God, it's very difficult. We can feel that presence in our heart, but really having that constant union with God, like feeling our feelings is the key to it. That really allowing ourselves to feel that connection, really allowing God to move through us, to allow that divine guidance to come up. So that is all possible by relaxing into our feelings, and yes, by feeling safe and giving that power to our feelings, that yes, we are really our feelings and we cannot, dissociate from them and live a divine life. For a divine life, for a divine self to even come up, it is important that we get really good at feeling all the gunk that is there initially. And once that kind of clears up, it builds that beautiful divinity within us, and really that allows the external sort of start shifting with the heaven that we have built within. So yeah.
Yeah, and I agree, Kanisha, with what you said about the struggle and and that expression. And that's true. When we do the experience of just releasing struggle and allowing ourselves to go through the experience, it's so much easier. But it takes time and mastery to be able to do that, because it's not yes, we kind of learn false reflex. It's the ego that invites us to make it more difficult than it is. And once we relieve that, it's really relieving, and we can feel that, okay, the feeling is just a pure feeling and we don't have to add much more things to that. And I also liked when related to that, when in the intro Stephanie told about the fact that even if you push away your feelings, even if you postpone the healing, your feelings will always be there. And if you don't heal them straight away in the moment, they will come back. They will come back to be healed, and eventually they will build up, and the upset might be bigger and bigger and bigger. And in some situation, there it might be complicated to deal with that. Nothing is impossible, and we always can go through any situation, but sometimes it's important and easier. It makes it easier to remind ourselves that, okay, I have to do that now, unless later it will be bigger and maybe more struggling to go through. So that, for me, that's helping me sometimes to not postpone my healing, and to face it, and to take time, and to sit with myself, and to make that space to feel safe, to feel them. That reminder that the feeling won't disappear, even if I try to push it away or ignore it in some way or other.
Yeah, I remember hearing someone explain that when you ignore your feelings, they just go down to like your core. They don't go anywhere. And so this is why we have upheaval, is because those feelings have to be come up and be released. But if you suppress them, they just like go down into your core, and then they can start manifesting into physical upsets because you're not actually allowing yourself to express the upset. And the other thing that you brought up was like the level of mastery. I think a lot of people think, well, I already healed this. Why is this coming back up? Or apparently I'm not doing something right because it's still showing up in my reality. And ultimately, it comes from understanding that all upsets, some of them you can clear right away with the mirror exercise, but some of them have layers because you've been experiencing it in your consciousness for such a long time. And a lot of us came to this work, for me, in my mid 20s, and all the way, and we're going into my early 30s. And so it's like having to recognize that there were so many years prior to this work where we suppressed all of these feelings and these emotions and these traumas. And so it's really important to be very compassionate and patient with yourself as you're moving through some of these deeper things coming up. And I just read, there's a seasoned coach in the open forum, and she had mentioned uh, kind of having to go back to the basics of things, which is what a lot of us have to recognize, is sometimes we'll even be very mastered, but the way to continue mastery is going back to the basics, writing out the mirror exercise, doing every step, feeling your feelings completely, integrating that part of yourself, and then asking yourself, how do I feel about it now? And really making sure that you're moving all the way through it until you're at a place of peace. But there are levels of consciousness that you're working through and shifting through. And you're also moving through family trauma or family blocks, things that have been happening for generations. And you were the one who chose to like heal this for your family. So I remember being told, and I think Jeff just said it not too long ago, or I heard it in the class, like, we're in a sense like legends for doing this and doing the work and choosing to move through these things. So it's not an easy job, it's not an easy task, but that's the beauty of community, is that you have people who are moving through, if not the same blocks or the same energy of a block. And it's a really relieving thing to be like, okay, I'm not the only one moving through this. I can ask for support. I can lean on my coach. I can make friends in the community. I can watch Twin Flame Ascension School. And you'll find that it's a very, and I was going to say familiar, but it's a very, regular occurrence for someone to be moving through something on a daily basis. And so it's important to not feel alone or that you're doing something wrong, because you're not. You're actually doing everything right, and you're doing more than what the majority of the world is doing. The majority of the world is numbed out to their feelings or numbed out to the experiences that are happening. And the majority of the world thinks that life is happening to them instead of realizing that it's actually like happening through them. Their outer reality is a reflection of their inner reality. And so we are learning through this work that we do the inner work, we go within, we heal that inwardly, and then our outer reality reflects that beautiful healing, especially our twin flame reflecting that healing back to us. So having that mastery is really important and is really key. And I do find that a lot of people come to this work just wanting to get their twin flame to like talk to them. That's like why they start the mirror exercise, is they just want their twin flame to communicate with them. But the more that they do this work, the more that they realize like every aspect of their life changes, and it's beyond just having that communication with their twin flame. They start really having a communication with themselves, which is what Gabe was pointing out in his sermon, was like your feelings lead you back to your true self.
Another I'll touch on is on similar lines, that the more we feel our feelings, it is easier for us to let go of any avoidance. Because, as you have also said, that when things get really tough on the outside, this has happened to me also, where when difficult situations come up, it's very easy to, if we are not reminding ourselves to feel our feelings, it's very easy to go into that situation and really get stuck there when the feelings are very strong and intense. And you just want to avoid them and do something on the outside to control the situation. So the more you are in touch with love, the more you feel safe in feeling your feelings. That allows us to really, discern that yes, these are just feelings to be felt. Because at that point, staying at that situation and reminding yourselves is very tough. Like it was very tough for me when I used to, there are these upheaval, not upheaval, there are these tower moments sometimes we face, right? That suddenly things just go upside down and we are like, okay, what has happened? At that time, I think really reminding ourselves and really allowing, having that practice maybe of feeling our feelings and not numbing down, not avoiding anything, and knowing that feelings cannot harm us. This is like one of the biggest lessons that we have to move through, and when we are learning also, that it cannot, like, although the situation may seem very difficult on the outside, but when you go and feel those feelings, mainly this happens when maybe there are extremely like difficult situations to move through, someone's twin flame getting married, someone losing a job. These are like difficult situations to like move through, and at that time the mastery of having felt your feelings, doing the mirror exercise helps to really come back and allow yourselves to move through the feelings. Otherwise it just seems like, okay, world is shattering down, now what do I do? So that is when I think that resilience, building that resilience from before, allows to very easily move through these situations and come to a place of light.
Yes, and I would like to emphasize something you both said. It's moving through. You insisted in Kanisha when you talked that we found in the community, we constantly found ourselves moving through something, and I really like this idea of movement, and because that's what it is, and that's this. I think the one of the component of the spiritual journey, that it's we are not stuck, we are not rigid in a position, we are constantly moving in order to purify, to heal, to ascend, and it's a constant movement. And recently I found myself in a situation which was really difficult for me, because it was a lot of contrast, and I had finally to remind myself that I made that choice to move through, to feel my feelings, to go to search that divine self of mine, that my true identity, and to be with God, and to be with my twin flame, and to ascend, because it was really difficult to find myself living with people that are not making that choice, and it was really uncomfortable. And I was seeing all the strategies we can develop to avoid feeling our feelings, and it's very present in our society. We had so many opportunities, let's say, to avoid feeling our feelings. So it might be difficult sometimes when we acknowledge that we choosing another path and that we are constantly sure being vulnerable sometimes, and feelings things that are uncomfortable, but the idea is that we move through something. So that's why I really wanted to stress that, as you said, Kanisha, it's really important to bond to with others that are on the same path, because it's a way of living that it's very different from what we've been told and what we can see in the majority, for now at least, around ourselves. So it's really important to find those spaces. Here there's the community, here is that discussion we having, to partner and to be with people that are doing the same and choosing the same path as you, and to be in that constant movement, because we can sometimes feel tired or feel too different from other people, and when we have others, uh, such as here in the community, we feel normal, and that we are not alone. We are not the only person who are choosing the same path, and that this discomfort we can feel when we enter our cave of fear leads to somewhere, and we can constantly make that experience of feeling good. So that's why when you say we all enter into the community searching for our twin flame and wanting communication with our twin flame, and then we end up healing layers and layers of family stuff, of workplace experiences and friendship and so on. And because at the end it's that good feeling that we search for, and that good feeling is that contact we make with ourselves. Mm.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. It really is. It's a way of life, and it's really what's going to allow you to have your heaven on earth is through feeling your feelings and allowing yourself to choose the more loving choice for you. And when you choose a more loving choice for you, it is going to be a ripple effect for everyone else in your life as well, including, but specifically your twin flame. Like every choice you make affects your twin flame. And this was something that took me a kind of a long time to ground. But now that I am actually living in the same space as my twin flame, we're both really recognizing how our choices really do affect each other on not just a physical level, but on an energetic level. And so when you're able to truly move through those feelings, you bring a lot of relief to them as well, because you heal as one, you're one consciousness. And so know that you're healing, even though you might feel like you're moving through it alone, you're moving through it for your union, and it's going to be very loving for your union. And it's going to create and cultivate a really harmonious and unbreakable foundation for your union as well. And so know that just feeling your feelings leads to more than you can imagine. It really does lead to your heaven on earth, and it's going to allow you to become and embody your true divine self, which is what I think everyone desires, is to really become their best and authentic self. So I'm feeling complete here. How are you ladies feeling? Any last words? Any last things you want to share?
Yeah, I think I want to feel complete. We have touched down on every piece, I think, of moving through our feelings and moving with them. So,
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for joining me today. And thank you, everyone who is going to see this on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you feel guided, definitely go and tithe and donate so that you could be a part of this movement and really allowing this work to get out to the world, because everyone deserves this work and to have a life that they feel really good and just feel very positive about. So it was wonderful to see you both, and we'll see you guys again next week.